You can sit. Up. Up. Dog. They don't want to see your butt. You want to say hi? The dog is here for a short bit, so I'll get the intro out of the way while he's here to see how much he barks. So this is going to be the last Lilo and Stitch video in regards to reviews for the movies and the TV series. I also have a new Lilo and Stitch shirt. And the dog's leaving. Seriously? Stitch prances around as Lilo's dog. That is an alien acting like a dog. Rainy is a dog that acts like a cat, prancing around like he owns the place. Yeah, sometimes I think he does. So, as you may recall from the other Lilo and Stitch videos, this video is going to be about Lilo and Stitch, the series, and then the movie Leroy and Stitch, and then kind of me talking about the two other series that they had. The Stitch, the series, and then Stitch and I don't know how to pronounce her name, I'm sorry. So, first part of the video, but, you know, first it's as I said, new Stitch shirt. I got the I Tried one, I got the Stitch and Ariel, then I got another Stitch one. Also got those ones, and I have a hairbread that is like Ohana, it says Ohana on it, and has like some of the flowers from Lilo and Stitch, and I've been trying to find it for like 2 weeks now, and I cannot find it. I have no idea where it ended up. At some point, hopefully I'll find it, and if I do, I'll work it into another video. For whatever reason. There's other Disney movies that are about family, so I can always work it in there one way or another. And at the time that I am recording this, I have actually just finally got to watch Raya and the Last Dragon for the first time. Finally. Still not going to do that review yet, because I at least like to have watched the movies, you know, a couple of times before I do the review. Plus, I've still got, you know, all the rest of the 2000 Disney movies to get through, plus the 2010s and into the 2020s, before it's time for me to do Raya and the Last Dragon for that review. So I'll probably get it watched at least 2 more times in that time frame. We'll see. And then I'll have a better ability of being able to talk about it without having to, like, stumble through it. Okay, so first part of the video is going to be about Lilo and Stitch, the series, which ran from 2003 to 2006. It takes place pretty much just after the Stitch the movie, where we see all of the experiment pods falling out of the sky, and then they start falling into water, or end up getting knocked into water, or end up getting rained on, or end up getting watered, like when someone's watering their garden, and they start activating all over the island. Then it ends up resulting in, of course, Lilo and Stitch running all over the island, trying to find the experiments, turning them good, and then finding their one true place. That's just basically the concept of the show. The foil of the show basically is Gantu and Experiment 625, working for Hamsterville to try and catch the experiments and then send them back to Hamsterville, who is currently still in prison from the Galactic Federation, but he is also able to still communicate with Gantu and 625. 625 just basically lives on the ship with Gantu. It's his ship crashed a while ago, and it's basically him just living on the ship. And 625 just keeps making so many sandwiches over and over again, because that's what he likes to do. He gives Gantu kind of advice every now and then, or like, well, why don't you try this, or why don't you try this instead, or why don't we do this instead? But he's not very much an antagonist in the series. He's just kind of there and is kind of Gantu's friend, so he doesn't sound crazy when he's talking to himself about losing to a little girl and an abomination monster. Throughout the course of the series, we meet a fair number of the other 624 experiments. We don't meet all of them, but we meet a fair number of them. They have so many different powers that range from There's one that is literally looks like a dog, like a poodle type dog or so, that actually ends up belonging to Myrtle. Lilo's rival, Myrtle. Myrtle gets a hold of it and she treats it as a dog. She names it Gigi. And its number is 007, so it's a joke on James Bond that, James Bond is always a spy undercover, and this is an alien undercover as a dog. Gigi doesn't do much. She just kind of yaps a lot. Was like her thing is like she's just kind of annoying. Each one of the different sections of like all the numbers and everything that like Gantu messed with, the Gantu made, or that not Gantu, that Jumba made, all have different functions. Some of them are more there to be annoying. Some of them are like household helpers. Some of them are things that have to do with causing a lot more chaos. Some of them get more and more powerful, or more and more to a degree mischievous or so as we go along. But all of the experiments have like a lot of them have like either like similar ears to what Stitch has, or a nose similar to Stitch, or like claws or feet similar to Stitch. So you can all still kind of see that family resemblance as it goes through, which is kind of nice that they stuck with that. Nani is there throughout the whole series. So is David every now and then. Jumba and Pleakley are there, of course. Cobra Bubbles shows up every now and then. Not too often, but occasionally. And then, of course, we have the rest of the people from Hawaii that are there so often. We have Kumu, who is, of course, the dance teacher. He shows up every now and then. We have, of course, Myrtle and her gang of friends, who at times, they continue to pick on Lilo and everything. They also end up, helping Gantu at times, which is weird. And then, of course, we have like the rest of the miscellaneous residents of the island and everything, like Mrs. Hasegawa, who's the fruit seller lady. And one of the running gags is that Nani has so many different jobs. She keeps getting bounced from like one job to another, not through her own fault. And sometimes it does result in like, oh, Lilo did something, but it's not necessarily Lilo's fault that Nami got fired. She works at a surf shop, if I remember correctly, for most of the series. But, so we get a lot of that. We meet some other new characters. We, of course, meet all of the other various experiments as they go along. And, so it's not too different. Most of the characters had the same voice actors. We still had Chris Sanders as Stitch. We still had Dave Chase as Lilo. We still had David Ogden Stiers as Jumba. We still had Kevin McDonald as Pleakley, or Wendy Pleakley, as we learned that is his full name. Let's see. We still have Tia Carrere as Nani. We still have Jeff Bennett as Dr. Jacques von Hamsterville, of course. We still have Kevin Michael Richardson as Gantu. We still have Rob Paulson as 625. And then we are, of course, introduced to a couple of other new characters, with the fact of, it's kind of stated that Jumba doesn't really have a family. He's like, Jumba, I don't remember if it's like he's an orphan, or if he just doesn't care for his family, or what, or if he's just on his own. We don't know. He just ends up, he kind of learns a little bit more about Ohana during the time that they're there, like that, you are part of this Ohana, you are part of Lilo and Stitch and Nani, and like this family here, you are part of this family, you and all the other experiments and Pleakley and such are part of this family. But what we do get is we do get to end up meeting Pleakley's family, because in the first movie we have it shown that he's talking to his mother multiple times throughout the series, or throughout the first movie, and then in the series we end up getting to meet his mother, so Mrs. Pleakley. We get to meet his sister, Pixley Pleakley, and his brother, Pertley Pleakley. If I remember correctly for the episode, it was basically like his mother had wanted to set him up with someone, and Pleakley made up the stupid lie that he was engaged and getting married, and they come back, they come to Earth for the wedding, and of course it's a fake wedding, and it goes from like, oh, he's pretending to be with David because they confuse David with the one that's engaged to Pleakley, and then it ends up being like Jumba, and then it's like the wedding doesn't go through, but like Pleakley's just like, no, Mom, I want to stay here on Earth. I just want to call, I just want to stay here on Earth. This is just where I want to be. And he does, he stays. One of the other ones is we meet, as I said, we meet lots of other experiments. They have lots of powers. One of them deals with memory loss. One of them works with like cutting hair. One of them works with, there's like a lava and a water combo duel that are really kind of cool, that I really like. There's so many other ones. Just, I may end up doing like an entire, maybe not an entire series where I talk about like every single experiment that we see throughout the entire series, but I may at least go through at some point and do kind of a experiment roundup type thing where it's just like, okay, now we're going to talk about a couple of experiments about this and talk about a couple of these or stuff like that. Some of them might get a little bit more of their own video because there's some that have a little bit more interesting powers. Like, as I said, there's one that makes you have amnesia and it makes you forget who you are, of course. And this one got unleashed on Gantu and Lilo and Stitch and Pleakley and Jumba, and it made them each forget who they were. But then, of course, we kind of end up, it kind of ends up being like we get to see that like Gantu does have the ability for good in him type thing is kind of what they were showing there. There's other ones, of course, that do so many other things. And then, of course, we have Angel. Point at Angel plushie. We have Angel. The concept for Angel is, I think if I remember correctly, she's like experiment number 623 or 624. If I remember her experiment number correctly. She's kind of based off of a siren type thing, where when she sings, her song turns any of the experiments that were made before her evil. Turns them, kind of reverses like Lilo making them good. And Hamsterville is the one that activates her, and he uses her to try to make Stitch fall in love with her. Spoiler alert, Stitch falls in love with her. Angel becomes his Budgie Boo, which is adorable. Budgie Boo is kind of like just like Stitch language for like mate. They kind of made like an entire language for Stitch, for like Stitch in the experiments, which is kind of fun. I think it's like listed somewhere on like one of the Wikipedias for one of the Disneypedia pages. So just like go there if you want to see what some of the other ones are. But Budgie Boo is like my favorite. Or if I remember, Kamzizabe Ziz is whenever he's trying to like hotwire something. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna hotwire it, and then we need to electrocute it. So we've got power, which is just funny. There's other ones, of course, that he has. But Angel kind of goes through a bit of a metamorphosis at one point because inner metamorphosis because she goes from kind of wanting to help Hamsterville to figuring out that, oh no, I actually like Stitch. I don't want Stitch to get hurt. The other thing with her song is that if it played backwards, it reverses what happened. So one of the things that happened was she tried to use it on Stitch and it didn't work because it doesn't work on any experiments that were made after her, just before her. And then it's fun what happens with Angel. She does end up getting rescued at one point by Stitch and Lilo and everything. By the end of the series, all the experiments are rescued. If I remember correctly, they've all been rescued from, from Hamsterville and Gantu, so they're all free, and they all have their one true place on Earth. We see at least at one point Jumba tries to make another experiment, 627, which is supposed to be like just another better version of Stitch, but it doesn't go well, and it ends up having to be like, hydrated. That was wrong. Dehydrated again, and compressed and everything, and it's set aside. And so we get a lot of that. But then one of the other things that they did, which I love that they did this with the Disney, with Lilo and Stitch, is that it basically made it that they did several crossover episodes with a lot of other series. I mentioned this in the Recess episode where they had a crossover with Recess. But what they also did was they had a crossover with Kim Possible, the Proud Family, An American Dragon Jake Long, and Recess, which was just so fun. And I remember watching these when I was a kid. And I mean, like, I loved watching Kim Possible. I loved watching Recess. I watched a fair amount of the Proud Family. I didn't watch as much American Dragon Jake Long, but I did watch it every now and then, but I did like it. And I know that they're doing like a reboot of Kim Possible right now, which I have not watched yet, but I might at some point. And I thought I had heard something about them wanting to do a reboot of Recess, which I'm like, okay, depending on how you do that, that could work. I have not heard anything about like a reboot of like American Dragon Jake Long or the Proud Family, but those could come down the line. But what ends up happening is, of course, we have these different crossover episodes, which basically just confirms that all of those take place in the same universe, which I love. Which is like, okay, no, not the most, ambitious crossover event that Disney has ever attempted. Insert Marvel, insert, Avengers and Age of Ultron, and then, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Insert those. But it's still fun to see that, like, all of these shows that, like, I grew up on watching, and that, like, some people who are gonna, watch this grew up on watching are still fun, or like your kids grew up on it or something like that, are still fun to see. It's like, okay, yeah, those all take place in the same universe. But so we have the Kim Possible episode where, of course, we have Kim there, we have Ron there, we have Wade pops up, of course, we have Dr. Draken and Shigo, and of course we have Rufus. If I remember correctly, they think that Rufus is an experiment, because Jumbo confuses Rufus with experiment 607. Which they look remarkably similar, but he's not. But like Lilo and Kim have to like work together at some point, if I remember correctly, to like help defeat Draken or something. I don't remember if like Draken teams up with Hamsterville, but that would have been funny. I would love to have watched Shigo's sass against Hamsterville. That would have been funny as all get out. But they help with that and everything, and it just, it's just good, Stitch and Lilo and Kim and Ron and everything in Hawaii is just kind of funny. And then of course we have the Proud Family crossover, which has, Penny in there, Oscar, Trudy, BB, Cece, Sugar Mama, and her dog Puff, and one of the other characters is there, but I don't remember exactly who he is off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I watched the Proud Family. But they end up staying at Jumba and Pleakley's bed and breakfast for whatever reason. I don't remember why. They're just on vacation. And there ends up being a rampaging experiment. That is experiment number 397. That is spats. Spats isn't like you have a spat with someone, because it makes you have argument with different characters. And what ends up happening is, of course, this results in several of the experiment, this results in like Penny and Lilo get hit with it and they start arguing, and like eventually they just have to like work together. So it makes like Trudy and Oscar argue, and it makes BB and Cece argue, and it makes like Sugar Mama and Puff argue, and is it just makes a lot of these characters argue with each other, so it makes it harder for it to work, because it's supposed to just make so many arguments, and it makes it that nothing is going to get done. Different bodies of government can learn from that. So we get that and everything, and they eventually get it solved and everything, and like Penny and Lilo are like friends by the end of it. And of course I talked about the recess one when I did the recess schools out video several weeks ago. We of course have TJ there, Vince, Spinelli, Gretchen, Mikey, and Gus are there, along with Finster, along with Miss Finster, and I think Randall is there as well. And like they have to deal with an experiment that's experiment 285 that is called Lax, which makes people extremely relaxed, and it makes them not really care about anything. And the way that they fix the problem, because there's like another problem that's going on that like if they don't get it fixed, then it's going like there's like something coming from outer space. And I don't remember if it's like an asteroid or something, but there's something coming from outer space, and if they don't have like a good warning system or something like that, it's not going to work. And what ends up happening is, all the rest of the recess kids get zapped with the, lax, beam. And the only one that is still able to work is Gretchen, because her version of relaxing is just doing tons of math already. So that works out. And then the other one is we have the American Dragon Jake Long crossover, which of course has Jake Long and Lawing Lo Shi and Foo Dog and Trixie and Spud. I didn't watch a huge amount of American Dragon Jake Long, but I remember enough about it because I always thought the idea was fun. And they end up being in the skateboard competition. Jake is in a skateboard competition, and Lilo also wants to take part. So she ends up activating an experiment that is experiment number 316 that she ends up calling Mortholomew, which can shapeshift itself, but it can also shapeshift someone else. And it shapeshifts Lilo to look like Jake. and they end up becoming like, they end up trying to think that there's all these weird experiments that they think are like the mythical creatures that Jake Long is supposed to protect and everything, and they end up becoming friends with Lilo and everything by the end of it, and it works out well. One of the other episodes, there's like a episode of it's experiment 032 called Fibber. Fibber is an experiment that if it detects a lie, it buzzes, and the bigger the lie, the louder it buzzes. And what ends up happening is they reunite the cast of, this is, I think, when they had Pleakley's family show up. They reunite the cast from Kids in the Hall. And because Kevin McDonald was in Kids in the Hall, apparently, who plays Pleakley, and he's, part of the cast and everything, and some of the other cast members voice his family. And, it's just, so it's like, Fibber keeps buzzing every time, like, Pleakley says, I'm engaged, and there's going to be a wedding, like all this other stuff. Now we're going to talk about Leroy and Stitch, which is, of course, the final movie for the series. It came out in 2006. The concept for the movie is it takes place after the end of the series. All of the experiments have been gathered up, and they've all been either all of the all of the pods have been gathered up and safely put away for now, because either the experiments are too dangerous to be activated, or they just never got activated in the first place. And they found like all the experiments have like their one true place and everything. And Lilo and Stitch and Jumba and Pleakley are now being rewarded by the Galactic Alliance. By the Grand Councilwoman, Lilo gets a medal. Stitch ends up getting a commission to be part of the Galactic Armada as one of the captains of their ships. Jumba gets kind of like cleared of all of his crimes for all of his crimes for making the experiments in the first place. And then Pleakley is going to be given the ability to teach at the Galactic Alliance Community College as like their Earth Studies expert. So they're all getting, all this, fun stuff, and like Jumba is also giving back his laboratory, and they're all honored as heroes and everything. And they end up getting, they go back to Hawaii, and what ends up happening is, Lilo kind of sees, Jumbo wanting to experiment more, Stitch dreaming about flying his own spaceship, and Pleakley, like basically, trying to do like lesson plans type things, because it's like, they all saw how sad she was at the concept of them leaving. So they're like, I think we'll stay on Earth for now. And Lilo kind of ends up convincing them that, no, you should go. And she, gives a lot of the, she gives them gifts. She gives Jumba her favorite Elvis record. She gives Pleakley a paperweight, which is actually just an earth rock, which of course to Pleakley is like the greatest thing in the world. And then to Stitch, she gives him a necklace that has a Ku'tiki, which is Hawaiian god of strength, on it that she gives to him, and it's his collar that he wears. And they all head off. Pleakley goes to become the teacher at the school, thinks that that's what he's going to be doing, is being a teacher and everything. But it's not quite what he thought. Jumba goes back to his lab, and he starts working on an experiment, because of course he shouldn't. He starts working on a new experiment that would be like, I think, experiment 628 or 629 or something like that, in the chronological order of all of the experiments. He ends up trying to, make another one better than Stitch. I don't think he's aiming for the evil experiment anymore, because I think he's kind of gone away from that. But what ends up happening is he started working on that, and then Stitch also goes off. And Stitch was given the license for the command of the BRB 9000, which is the Big Red Battleship 9000. Stitch likes red. We are aware of this from the first movie, because he took the red one out of the police cruisers, which is so funny. But what ends up happening is, of course, this leaves Lilo as the sole guardian of all of the experiments on Earth, all of the cousins. And she goes around and she has like this book that shows where every single one of the experiments is. you know, where their one true place is, how happy they are, and what their name is. And so I guess it's like a little bit like, I guess it might have been like Disney's play at like collecting Pokemon. But like they don't, like Lilo doesn't get to keep them. They get, you know, they have like their own places where they're supposed to be. Like one of them is like, it pretends to be like a cat somewhere. One of them is like a bodybuilder that like works out at the beach all the time. There's like so many other ones that's like, this is like the best place for them to be type of thing. And I was like, I can just go through like everything. I was like, I don't remember every single experiment, but so many of them are just so fun to look at. And I might just do like a thing where I do like an experiment roundup later on down the line, for like a bunch of the different experiments. But what ends up happening is, of course, Gantu goes and he decides that he has, you know, failing from so many capturing the experiments, except for 65, he decides he's going to break Hamsterville out of prison. And he takes the two-man shovel, leaving 625 alone, and he escapes, and he, you know, gets Hamsterville, and they escape from prison, and then they end up going to, and Stitch is assigned to capture Hamsterville, and Hamsterville and Gantu go to where Jumba's lab is, and they create an evil twin of Stitch that is called Leroy. Hamsterville names it. And to defeat the Galactic Alliance, of course. Stitch arrives, and after the fight, he's defeated when Plickly appears at an inopportune moment. He had been trying to communicate with Stitch via, like, you know, transmission and everything. Inopportune moment, distracting Stitch, and allows Leroy to win. And then Leroy also has the ability to, like, color change. So he color changes back into, like, Stitch's coloring, and then, like, pretends to be Stitch, and then, like, basically takes the Galactic Alliance ship hostage. And then Hamsterville makes a clone army. We're getting into Star Wars territory here. A clone army of Leroys to take over the Galactic Alliance. And they end up heading toward the, heading to where, where the Galactic Alliance is based. And they end up capturing Jumba and Plickly, and they take Stitch, of course, and they put them into a Plickly ship, or I don't remember if it was like, no, I think it was like Plickly came to like visit Jumba and Stitch, and then he got captured or something. And then they're putting them all into a Plickly ship, and they're going to send them into a black hole. And they send him that way. They send them that way, and what ends up happening is Lilo on Earth, she decides that she's going to contact Stitch because she misses him. And, that the only intergalactic video phone on the planet is on Gantu's ship. Which I'm like, you'd think the Galactic Alliance couldn't have given you a video phone for you to have in your home. But it results in, like, her going to Gantu's ship, and she's trying to use the video phone. However, Experiment 65 explains, oh, it's broken, and it's been broken for so long, and I'm going to be opening a restaurant here and everything, and, there are going to be sandwiches everywhere, all the best sandwiches, and I wouldn't mind trying some 625 sandwiches, in all honesty, because those are, like, his specialty. And what happens is Lilo ends up finally naming 625, because, like, through the entire series, he never got a name. Didn't get a name in the first movie, not through any of the, like, 65 or whatever episodes that are in the series. He never got a name. She names him Reuben, because so many of the experiments are named after either what they do or kind of their power or something along those lines, of course. And because he likes to make sandwiches, and a Reuben is a type of sandwich, it's also a name, she names him Reuben, which makes him very happy, and there he consents to help Lilo. She also, like, tries one of his sandwiches and really likes it. And, he works on helping her fix the video phone so she can call the Big Red Battleship, and tries to talk to Stitch, who is, of course, being impersonated by Leroy at this point in time. And it doesn't quite work because Lilo notices that he doesn't have on his tiki necklace. And she realizes that that's not Stitch. He's also not talking quite right and everything. And then she finds out, oh, it's Hamsterville and he's in control, and this is Leroy. She approves Leroy's name because, like, Hamsterville's like, what? You don't like the name? She's like, no, it's a fine name. Don't compliment the villains, Lilo. And, like, they do a whole bunch of that stuff, and she ends up she's like looking at 65, like, I have to find my way to my friends. I have to go and help Stitch. And Ruben, senses that, Lilo senses that Stitch is in trouble, and, Ruben decides to help. And he helps with, fixing Gantu's ship and everything, so that way they can fly off. At this point in time, Lilo, or Jumbo, Pleakley, and Stitch are heading towards the black hole, and they escape. Or Stitch escapes out of his bindings, and then he ends up using Pleakley's rock to mess with the navigational computer and in the black hole to teleport them to somewhere else, and they end up getting sent to where is it they get sent to? I don't remember. They get sent to somewhere else. It's not, not a volcano planet that's going to blow them up. On Earth, Leroy has managed to get a hold of Lilo's scrapbook and uses it to track down every single one of the cousins, capturing them, along with Myrtle when he captures Gigi, and then he takes them all to this, he takes a ton of all of the experiments to, like, this, stadium, which I think the stadium is on Earth. And during also this time frame, Hamsterville has taken over the Galactic Alliance. He's made the Grand Councilwoman his receptionist, and they all have to wear, like, little capes with an H on them because Hamsterville is a narcissist. And he orders Gantu, Lilo and Ruben show up to try to talk to the Grand Councilwoman. That's not working. Hamsterville is there, and he's of course in charge now, and Lilo and Ruben get thrown in jail. Gantu imprisons them, but after, Hamsterville basically fires Gantu because now he's got all these competent workers in regards to all the Leroy clones. He doesn't need Gantu anymore, so he basically fires Gantu, and Gantu then goes and he frees, frees Lilo and Ruben, and then this is where Stitch and Pleakley and Jumbo show up, and what ends up happening is, they show up from the black hole because that's where they transport them instead, because Disney logic and plot holes. Plot holes that are black holes that are plot holes. And they end up there, and they all, Jumbo and Ruben, or Gantu and Ruben and Lilo all climb in, and, like, Gantu was, like, scrunched into the trunk. He's like, it's like, I can ride in the backity back. To this day, I have a hatchback. I've had 2 cars, and they're both hatchbacks. And I always refer to it as the backpack, or the backity back. Probably because of this. Just because that's funny. Because it's a hatchback, and it's funny. But that's where, like, Jumbo, or, like, Gantu is, like, squinched in. And they get to Earth, and they're, Leroy and, Hamsterville are planning on destroying all of the experiments. Destroy all of them. And they're at a stadium that is going to have Aloha Palooza. Yeah. Lots of ironic stuff there. And what ends up happening is they get to, Lilo and Stitch and their group get to the stadium, and they start, trying to fight against Hamsterville and the clones, and of course the other experiments are all helping and everything. And, Stitch rallies his cousins and everything, and they begin to fight. And what ends up happening is the other experiments are too weak to fight against, Leroy. And what ends up happening, of course, is Jumbo tells Lilo that when he was making Leroy, he had been playing the record that Lilo gave him, Elvis Presley's Aloha Oi. And he says that if it's played again, that if, the Leroy clones and Leroy himself hear it, it was set in as a backup method to be able to turn it off, to deactivate him. And so if we use those, then it'll deactivate him if we play that. And Stitch appears on stage in his Elvis attire and everything, and he begins to play Aloha Oi with Stitch and with Lilo and Ruben accompanying him, and like so many of the other cousins start jumping up to start helping play and everything, and all of the Leroys just start like like electric, like look like they're getting like shut off, and then they just keep falling. And then we see Angel there, and like pretty much all the other experiments pop up in this moment in time. And they're all running around and everything. Like, Myrtle is there, and, like, Gigi starts talking, and Myrtle is just, like, thrown for a loop by that and everything. And they end up, so it's just like this big moment where it's like all of them are singing and happy and everything. And they end up getting, all of the Leroy clones get shut down, and then the Galactic Alliance shows up, and they're able to capture Hamsterville. And I'm assuming, I don't know, since they're all clones of Leroy, I don't remember if we ever get a specific answer as to what happened to them then. And not exactly sure what happens with that. I don't know if it's like all of them just get like dehydrated and then they just have like them sealed away somewhere, and like a place where like no one's gonna find them, or what, I don't know. But Hamsterville is locked away. The Galactic Alliance is put back in charge where it's supposed to be. Lilo and Stitch and Jumba and Quickly are all, awarded again as heroes of the Alliance again. Gantu is, because he helped them, ends up getting his original job back, and he asks Ruben to now be his like head chef on the ship, his galley officer. And back on Earth, Lilo sets up for one last picture to put into the book, as like the last page of the book, that is going to show Lilo and Stitch and Jumba and Quickly and Nani and David. I don't remember if Cobra Bubbles is there or not. I don't think so. Are all going to be in this picture, and along with all of the other experiments all around their house. And Myrtle and Gigi show up, because Myrtle, of course, saw what happened at the stadium and everything. And like Gigi says that she likes having a family, and so Myrtle is like, I can deal with this. And they, so Myrtle and Lilo are kind of like, okay, fine, you can be part of this because of Gigi. I'm only here because of Gigi. Okay, we're on the same page then. Just smile at the camera. And take this big picture of all of them having fun and everything. Oh no, this is what it ends up happening. Okay, so yeah, so they do the big family picture and everything, and then we cut to meanwhile, we have Hamsterville is of course locked up in his jail cell with all the Leroy clones. I couldn't remember what happened to them. They've all recovered from their shutdown things, and like Jailhouse Rock is playing. So we have like all the clones are dancing and everything. And the credits roll. The full list of Jumba's experiments, 001 through 626, and the names that they are given by Lilo and other characters, because occasionally some of the other characters would end up naming them instead, are there during the entire credit scroll. So we get to see all of them. Pretty much the same voice cast as before. As I mentioned before, Zoe Caldwell came back to play Grand Councilwoman. The only thing that I would have liked to have seen is like if they had brought back Cobra Bubbles. That would have been perfectly fine in my opinion. Now we move into Stitch the series, which I have only seen one episode of this. I was vaguely aware of it, but I wasn't 100% sure what exactly it was. I had heard about Stitch the series. And what Stitch the series is it takes place after Leroy and Stitch, several years after Leroy and Stitch, actually. And it's Stitch ends up falling to Earth in Japan, off the coast of Okinawa, and he ends up becoming friends with this girl named Yuna Kamihara, who is like, she's about 10 years old or so, or 11 or so later on in the series. And the two of them become friends, and Jumba and Quickly show up later on because they have to keep an eye on Stitch. So they show up, and we meet Yuna's family. She has her cousin Tiger Lily that lives with them. She has Oba, who is her and Tiger Lily's grandmother. And so she lives with her grandmother and her cousin. I don't remember what happened with her parents. But like her and Stitch become friends, and then Jumba and Quickly show up, as I said. And then we also have Angel shows up every now and then. A bunch of the other experiments shows up every now and then, along with Hamsterville, Jumba, or Gantu. I don't know why I always mix up Jumba and Gantu. They are not the same person by any means. And Ruben show up because Jumba, again, Gantu and Ruben kind of got kicked out because they made a mistake or something like that, or they messed up on a mission or something like that. And they got kicked out of the Galactic Armada again. So now they have to return to their life of crime and helping Hamsterville. And so they're trying to capture all the experiments again because the experiments kind of got loose again. So um, you know, what ends up happening is I think it's the concept that they came up with is that like Stitch had interacted with like a because one of the other things that they deal with in the series are yokai, which are these Japanese spirits that can cause problems or different things like that. And Stitch, a lot of people think that Stitch is a yokai, because on the island where they live, it's not uncommon for people to think that they're a yokai. And Stitch ends up talking. I think if I remember vaguely, I read like a summary of the series, and I just kind of vaguely remember what it was. Stitch, like wants to become like the strongest thing in the world, and to do that, he has to do so many good deeds. But the hamster is messing with the good deeds. So, there's also another lady that's introduced, Delia, who is an alien woman who is in a partnership with Hamsterville to get get a type of chip or something inside of Chicks that would allow her to control him and everything so she can use him. Angel pops up, as I said. There's a new experiment that's introduced that is experiment number 000, who is Cyber, who is an evil experiment that is a cyber version of Stitch that looks really creepy. There is an episode in this where I don't know if it's like near the end of the series or what, but I guess because so many of the fans were like, well, where's Lilo? Because, Jumba's there, Pleakley's there, Gantu's there, Reuben's there, Hamsterville's there, Stitch is there. Where is Lilo? And what ends up happening is it is explained in one of the episodes that it's several years after the end of Leroy and Stitch. And what it is, or what had happened was Jumba and Pleakley tell this story to Yuna. And it's Stitch and Lilo. It was just Stitch. Lilo was going to be going off to college. And what ends up happening is Lilo, as I said, Lilo is going to go off to college, and Stitch has a 4-year-long mission that he has to go on for the Galactic Alliance. And what ends up happening is they were going to leave on the beach, like Nani and Jumba and Pleakley were there to say goodbye and everything, and they made a deal that like in 4 years we'll meet back here on this spot on the beach. And such, and the 4 years pass, Lilo's in college, Stitch is away on his mission, and he comes back to the beach, and he waits all day long and into the night, and Lilo never shows up. And he had his tiki necklace, his tiki collar, and he took that off and he left it there for Lilo to find, because he thought that Lilo forgot about him, or that Lilo didn't want anything to do with him anymore. And then he ran away, and then that's he went in a ship, and then it crashed, and he landed in Okinawa. What ends up happening after that, at the beginning of this episode, we have it that Stitch saw a girl on a tour bus that looked exactly like Lilo when she was a kid. And he follows the tour bus and he chases it down. And the girl gets off and she looks exactly like Lilo. She's holding Scrump. She's holding the stuffed animal. And she recognizes Stitch. And she sounds exactly like Lilo. And Stitch thinks that she is Lilo. And they end up, having like this day of fun and everything. And, then it ends up being that, they meet Yuna, and Yuna tells, Jumba and Pleakley are kind of figure out, well, can it be Lilo? Well, she wouldn't be a kid anymore. She would have been fully grown and everything. With how many years it's been, she would have been fully grown and everything. And Jumba and Pleakley have explained to Yuna that it wasn't that Lilo forgot. It was on the same day that happened. Nani was at the hospital in labor giving birth. And Lilo couldn't get away, and Lilo did show up eventually at the beach, but it was too late. Stitch was already gone, and he left his collar, so she's heartbroken that Stitch is gone. And Nani supposedly had a baby at this point in time. We're assuming it's David's. We're assuming that they got married, but that's never 100% confirmed. Nani. We don't see Nani in the series, unfortunately, in this bit. We just get, we see her as like when Stitch and Lilo were saying goodbye to each other, but we don't see her again. But what ended up happening is Hamster VLC is that Lilo is there, so he has one of the experiments that is currently under his control, which is Bartholomew, the one that can shapeshifts into Lilo, and he tries to have the fake Lilo do something bad or something like that to get Stitch to do something bad. I don't remember exactly. But it ends up getting revealed that the little girl is not Lilo. She's not Lilo. There's an older girl that's with her who is actually Lilo, and Lilo is full grown, and that this girl is Lilo's daughter, Ani. And that Ani grew up on these stories of Stitch and the experiments and Jumba and Pleakley and like all these adventures that her mother got to go on and everything, and that's why she knows who Stitch is. And that's why she has Scrump and why she looks exactly like Lilo. And we get to, Stitch is running after them at the airport, and there's like this, kerfuffle that happens between like Stitch and some other people and everything. And he finds out that, oh, this is Lilo. And we have this moment where it's like they're on, it's like there's, because of airports, there's like so much part of the glass and everything. And like Stitch is on one side of the glass and not Lilo is on the other side of the glass. And it's just like this, oh, moment where you're just like, oh my God. I would not blame Stitch at all if he broke the glass. But like they get through that, and like, Lilo and Stitch finally get to be reunited. In regard to that, and like not Lilo explains it. Well, I didn't abandon you, Stitch. Nani was in labor, and I had to be at the hospital, and and then when I got there, you weren't there anymore, and I've been waiting so many years to see you, and I'm sorry. And Ani is my daughter, and obviously Lilo kind of either got married or something like that. Ani had like a mean nanny with her. Which I'm like, Lilo, you know what it was like to grow up. Why would you get your child a mean nanny? You didn't like it when your sister was, kind of a mean nanny to you. Why do you get your kid a mean nanny? But we never get a confirmation on, like, who Ani's father is. There was a boy throughout the series that, like, Lilo had a crush on. But I don't know if that would have ended up resulting in anything. Because it's never confirmed there. But, like, Lilo finally gets to give Stitch back his tiki necklace. So he has that. And then... so we get that for the series. I really don't know that much else about the series. I have not watched it. I just watched the one episode because I'm like, okay, I at least want to see what this is about, and I want to see like if they pop Lilo into it. Mainly what ended up happening is that it had originally been a Japanese dub, and they didn't mention Lilo very often or at all. And what ends up happening is, when Disney got their hands on it, what they were going to do, well, it was still done by Disney, but what they did was that they adjusted this and they put this episode in there so that way it's like, oh no, Lilo isn't gone. It's not like that stuff with Lilo never happened. It's just, this is what happened. And I'm like, I know that that's like a basic explanation for it, but I just kind of find it as like BS because like with everything that Lilo and Stitch went through, with everything that she went through with like in the first movie and the second movie with like, bringing him back to life, quote unquote, and Stitch has a glitch, was going through everything with the cousins and everything, proving how strong their friendship is, how strong their bond is, how strong their Ohana is, that I just kind of find it stupid that like, okay, she was a little late and they couldn't have just quite easily have sent Jumba or Pleakley or someone else to the beach. Like, sent one of the other cousins to the beach to get Stitch and say, hey, no, Lilo didn't forget about you. She's at the hospital. I know that basically erases the complete point for the Stitch the series, but, still. More logic could have been brought in here. The other one that they have is Stitch and IE, which came out in 2017. I don't know if it's still running or not, but it came out in 2017. Again, takes place after that. I think it's another sequel series. I don't know if it's like in coordination with like Stitch the series or if it takes place after that. I don't 100% know. Haven't watched any of it. But Stitch lands in China and he ends up becoming friends with a girl named Wang Ailing. And he ends up having so many fun interactions with her. He gets to run around China, and he, Jumba and Pleakley are there, of course, on, on mission from the Galactic Federation to keep an eye on Stitch. So they have fun there. Some of the promotional art shows dragons in it, which is kind of cool. So Stitch has more fun there and everything. Again, I have no idea if they show Lilo in that series at all. I have not seen it yet. I don't know if they dubbed it into English or not yet. They might have, they might not. I don't know. There have not been any other Lilo and Stitch continuations that I am aware of that show Nani and David, or Lilo, for any other indication as to like what's going on with that family. Like, was it Nani and David that got married, and was David the father of Nani's kid, which we would assume or we would hope for. You know, whatever else happened. One of the other running gags, of course, throughout the series is that Pleakley likes to dress in Nani's clothes, which is just weird. Funny, but weird. That's about what I have for this one, for Lilo and Stitch, for, you know, the series, and Leroy and Stitch, and Stitch the series, and Stitch and Ai. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced that name. As again, I might do another series where I talk about like an experiment roundup, where like I go through like talk about all of the other experiments in either sections, or just like a major video about different ones of them. But I've got other video ideas that I'm going to be working on for that, and I've still got other Disney movies to work my way through. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye! Stitch, for one. He's a royal pain, but he's loyal. And he'll never, ever, ever do anything that would hurt you. That's a true friend.